Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. For days, we have watched as a growing caravan of Honduran nationals has snaked northward toward our border to claim asylum here. The spectacle has been televised from the very start, and it has sparked an explosive political debate. Now, more migrants are on the way. There are reports tonight that another caravan of asylum seekers, this one organized exclusively on social media, is planning to leave from El Salvador next week, heading here. You can be certain that when and if that group actually arrives here, the usual red-faced cable news anchors will demand that we let them in immediately, no questions asked. Never mind that 1/3 of all Salvadorans on Earth already live here in the United States. It is our duty, they will tell us. Once those anchors get off the air, they will return home to entirely immigrant-free neighborhoods feeling good about themselves. The only Salvadorans they will ever meet personally are those doing their laundry for minimum wage. But ignore the hypocrisy if you can. Stifle your personal concerns about mass immigration. People are suffering, they're telling us, and only America can save them. If you've been watching television, you've seen pictures like this all day of desperate poverty and hopelessness. Oh, sorry about that. That was the wrong tape. That was not a slum outside Tegucigalpa. That video was shot right here in Orange County, California, not far from Disneyland. The desperate and impoverished people on the screen you saw were American citizens. Hundreds of thousands of them sleep on the ground every night in this country. They don't make it on CNN very often. They're just Americans. Their tragedy is not interesting. If they did laundry at $5 an hour for rich people, though, our moral superiors might notice and care. But as of now, no, the cable news geniuses could not be less concerned about what is happening to American citizens. Which, if you think about it, kind of explains the Trump phenomenon. One of the great mysteries here in Washington is how a president with no prior political experience, who's emotionally volatile and not very articulate, remains nevertheless so very popular outside of Washington. It doesn't make any sense, but of course it makes sense. Trump's secret? He says things like this.
They have a word. It sort of became old-fashioned. It's called a nationalist. And I say, really, we're not supposed to use that word. You know what I am? I'm a nationalist, okay? I'm a nationalist.
A nationalist. In other words, a leader who puts his own country first, who cares about his own people most. You'd think everyone in charge of a nation would be a nationalist. Putting the interests of your own citizens above those of citizens of other countries was once considered a prerequisite for running a democracy. Not anymore. Now it's considered immoral, evil, in fact. Watch this.
Nationalist. Use that word. We're going to talk about that word tonight. It is a favorite of the alt-right and is loaded with nativist and racial undertones.
He's weaponized race and sort of nationalism and dog whistles.
You're suggesting there's some kind of dog whistle there.
It is. It implies, it does provoke hate activities.
What are you trying to say as President of the United States, that you're a nationalist? Americans know what that means. It's not even a dog whistle anymore. It's a bullhorn.
Not a whistle, it's a bullhorn. Hitler was a nationalist. Of course, so were Mahatma Gandhi and Abraham Lincoln and every other leader of every other nation state throughout history until about 20 minutes ago. But whatever. Nationalism provokes, quote, hate activity, says a sitting U.S. senator. All the cable news geniuses say amen.
There was a time, in my lifetime, I'm not that old, when a picture like that would have just elicited nothing but sympathy and empathy among the American people. You see that and you think, oh my God, what must be happening where those people are coming from? How can we open our arms to people like that?
These people are coming and asking for asylum. Guess what, Ben? It's in our laws that people are allowed to come to our borders and ask for asylum.
This is a moral outrage that harkens to the worst excesses in the history of the country, to the separation of families at the slave auction blocks, to the separation of Native American families.
I hope you're following that at home. Immigration, it turns out, is not a civic question that American voters might be allowed to have opinions about. It's bigger than that. It's a moral outrage. It's a humanitarian crisis. The law is irrelevant here. So are any of your stupid, selfish concerns about the effect of impoverished foreigners moving into your neighborhood or your school district. The rule here is simple. Listen carefully. If people from a place poorer than America want to move to America, they get to do that, period. If you disagree or complain or do anything other than recite the poem at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty, you are, well, you already know what you are because you've heard it 1,000 times, but we're going to tell you again anyway. Maybe this time it will penetrate. You are a racist.
They see those pictures and are being told, fear those brown people.
The Democrats are a diverse party. The Republicans appeal disproportionately to older whites. And the mob thing is an attempt to alarm those voters about the prospect of non-whites and immigrants.
The right-wing coverage of this, is it demagoguery? How would you describe this?
It is demagoguery, Brian. It is also, I believe, racism and nativism, really pandering to the fears of Trump supporters and Fox News viewers.
Yep, you're racist, just like you were racist for opposing Obamacare or not watching Sunday Night Football or believing that Brett Kavanaugh did not sexually assault someone. You are a bigot until the moment you obey the Democratic Party, at which point you are a good person like Al Sharpton or Louis Farrakhan. You know the drill. There's one interesting new twist in this latest propaganda barrage, though: fear. If you're against admitting an entire caravan full of poor people into this country, it's because you've been coached by that dastardly Fox News to fear the people in the caravan. But let's be honest, that's not really true. There are a lot of reasons to oppose admitting this caravan full of people. We don't need any more low-wage labor in this country, for one thing. We also have a right to decide who occupies our property. That's always true. Show up uninvited at Joy Reid's house, and you'll discover that she agrees with that principle, too. So there are good reasons to oppose this. Fear of Hondurans isn't really one of them. By and large, these are not scary people. Mostly they're just poor people from crappy countries who want a better life. That's understandable. Nobody blames them for that. Nobody's really afraid of these people. What normal people are afraid of is this.
We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors!
And this. So look closely at those videos. What didn't you see in them? Migrant fruit pickers from Honduras. There weren't any. There wasn't a single impoverished Central American immigrant. The only work boots you saw in those videos were from Brooklyn. They're part of the hipster costume. They're not real. Those were thoroughly American kids, kids with clean fingernails, children of privilege. Those are people with 4-year college degrees. Some of those people teach in colleges. What you just saw was the activist left. That's a group about as diverse as the checkout line at Whole Foods. These are not immigrants. They're far too pampered and decadent to be immigrants. These are homegrown religious extremists who believe in nothing but their own power. Suddenly, people exactly like this hold congressional seats. And they host their own TV shows, and they teach at your kid's school. These are the people worth worrying about. So cool it with the lectures about fear. Listen carefully, cable news geniuses. It's not impoverished peasants from Central America we're afraid of. It's you. Univision anchor Jorge Ramos joins us tonight from southern Mexico at the site of the caravan encampment. Jorge, I'm really glad you're here because I've wanted to ask you this question all day. So in the many times we've spoken, you've explained that immigrants to the United States from Central America are a net addition to our economy. They're America's strength. They make this a much better country. Given that, why isn't Mexico jumping at the chance to absorb these migrants into its economy? Why is it wasting this human capital?
Well, the reality, Tucker, is that most of the immigrants that you see behind me, and as a matter of fact, they're not criminals or terrorists or not even immigrants, they're refugees. They don't want to stay here in Mexico. They want to go to the United States. Their plan is just to have a better life in the United States, and they are refugees. So I think we have to treat them with respect. We have to listen to the stories, hear their cases, check their backgrounds, and if they apply for political asylum, go through the process. The reality, Tucker, I understand what you're asking, but the reality is that they want to stay in Mexico, where, by the way, in the last 12 years, more than 200,000 people were killed. They don't want to stay here. They're fleeing violence and extreme poverty in Honduras, most of them. So they want to go to the United States. They don't want to stay here in Mexico. And in Mexico, by the way, they crossed the border between Guatemala and Mexico. I was there this morning, but that's probably just for Donald Trump to see. Just by the bridge, you will see little boats crossing thousands of immigrants in the last few days for
but I'm confused. But hold on. Wait, but hold on.
The reality is completely different.
Okay, so you say that the United States must show respect to these, what you call refugees. Why doesn't Mexico show them respect? Mexico is a rich country, the richest in the region. There are more billionaires in Monterrey and Mexico City than there are in Washington, D.C. Why are they sleeping on the ground? And why haven't they been taken care of by rich Mexicans of goodwill, the blue-eyed ruling class of which you were a part? Where are they in this?
Well, you know, it's a great question, and I'm so glad that you asked it, because Mexicans, despite what you might hear in social media, Mexicans have been treated, all these refugees, with incredible generosity and with incredible solidarity. I know that there are fake stories in the United States saying that these people were funded by George Soros and by Democrats or by Nicolás Maduro from Venezuela. Vice President Pence is completely wrong about that, because if they really finance these people, it was a scam. I've been talking to people here in Chiapas who don't have a single dollar, Tucker, to buy a bottle of water. So there's no financing here. And
no, but hold on, that's my point.
Not the politicians. The politicians, right. They've been playing the game with Donald Trump. But civilians, Mexican civilians, have been giving all these refugees a little money, water, food, clothes,
but
and
why
sometimes
not?
transportation to
what about sure? I understand that.
Yesterday I saw something incredible.
Wait, but let me just interrupt you and say,
I tell you,
go ahead.
Yesterday they went 26 miles, a marathon. Many kids, hundreds of kids, Tucker, and that's the people of the caravan, not terrorists or criminals.
I think most Mexicans are very nice people. I grew up next to Mexico. I always liked them. It's your ruling class I'm asking you about, the people who are some of the richest people in the world, who spend the summer in France every year. And again, you're from this group, so you can speak to this. Where are they in this? Why aren't they taking care of these people who are sleeping on the ground? We can see them right behind you. But where are those people? Where are the Mexican billionaires? They're very good at lecturing us about our moral inferiority, but they don't seem to be helping at all. Why?
No, I think you want to concentrate on what Mexicans are doing. I just told you that civilians have done it in a beautiful, generous way. And I think we have to concentrate now on what the role of the United States should be in all these crises. First of all, I spent 2 days with these refugees, and I have not seen a single person from the Middle East. That's a lie. And I think Tucker, you have to tell the truth to your audience, and you have to make sure that people are not lying about this caravan, because the people from the Middle East are not part of this caravan.
What are you? Let me just ask. What are you doing? Wait, hold on. I understand.
Their lives.
Look, I'm not there, so I can't describe the people there. You said the United States, its taxpayers, me, the other 330 million American citizens, right, have an obligation. How many of these migrants are you taking in personally into your home and are supporting once they get to the United States?
I think that's a great question, and that's precisely the kind of question that people like you ask when you don't want to understand that this has nothing to do with individuals, it has to do with nations. And what we have to understand is that these refugees are not a threat to the United States. I know that in Fox News...
No, but how many are you taking? Before you attack the Fox, it's a simple question. How many are you taking in?
They are not a threat to the United States. I think it's really a love letter to the United States. And you know what they're saying in the United States? Please help us. You're the only ones who can help us.
I think that's right.
Exactly what
I agree with you. But I agree.
People like you and from all your audience. So I think it's very important that you say.
What about you? Hold on,
I understand. Foxhole respondents to these
I'm not attacking.
And don't lie to your audience.
But I'm not lying to the audience.
They're
I'm trying to get. I'm going to stop with this. I'm going to stop with this.
You and Fox News and President Trump are saying.
I'm asking you a very simple question. Okay. Let me just ask you. Let's answer this question. We can end on this. How many of these migrants are you personally taking responsibility for? How many are going home to Jorge's place in Miami at the end of the day? And please be specific.
Yeah, well, I think that, again, this has nothing to do with individuals. It has nothing to do with me. I wish I could help all of them. But right now, we're talking about 7,000 here. We're talking about 2,500 kids. It is impossible for an individual to deal with a crisis like this. I think President Trump's immigration policy has been a complete failure.
Have you donated money personally?
I hope that,
Well,
that you could help them
donated
too,
money?
and I wish I could help them too.
Well, you
I wish
can.
we could do that.
Well, sure
I wish we could do something like that. But
Well, I think you
I
can.
bet if your kids were in danger of being raped or being raised in extreme poverty or being threatened with joining Amara or a gang, what would you do? I mean, would you
I can count on you to do a stand-up next to them, but probably not to help them, I noticed. Okay. Jorge, thank you so much. Appreciate it. People are very upset about the migrant crisis. Not upset enough to help personally, but upset enough to maybe help.